Hello, everyone, and thank you for staying until the end. So I'm going to be facing the side firstly, and I'm sorry for that. It's because I'm looking at a different screen, but I'm going to be talking about my PhD research. It's not finished, it's 2/3 in. So I'm not going to show lots of data, but mainly I wanted to get a concept out that I've concluded on, and I hope to be useful, particularly at the practice level in schools. So I'm looking at how career conversations with teachers particularly can be planned in a differentiated way in schools. And in so doing, I hope that these career conversations can help in the vocational progress of students. So my study is particularly looking at how to inform the planning of differentiated career conversations for vocational progress in the context of Portugal. So for me to make it easy for you to understand the direction of the presentation, I'm going to be defining three main terms, and these are vocational progress. The second one is career competencies, which relate with vocational progress. The third is career conversations. And then I'm going to go from these definitions to talking about the instruments of my research. And I consider these to be possible instruments that can be used for differentiated career conversations. At the end, I hope to suggest, not just at the end of my study, but now as well, that these can be methods to assess vocational progress with. So let's talk a little bit about vocational progress, because many times when we talk about vocational anything, we associate that as with a particular educational path. But vocation really does mean career direction, as John Dewey puts it in his Democracy in Education book. So if we are thinking about career direction, we are thinking of ways to measure which career direction students do have. And one way that I've researched can work towards that is by looking at their career competencies. And what are these? Career competencies really can be understood. This is a very debated term, so I'm not going to talk to you as to why it is debated. But a simple way to put it is that they comprise the knowledge and the skills and attitudes that individuals are required to have so that they can successfully identify their future path and prepare for it. So one could look at career competencies as being forms to indicate vocational progress, the same way that grades are forms to indicate academic progress. And in talking about these career competencies, studies that were done in the Netherlands on career conversations and career competencies with over 2,000 students have identified three main types of career competencies students come with from having had career conversations. And these are reflection, which are indicative of the motivation and aptitudes of those students. Career shaping, so are they able to design and steer their own career path? And networking, are they making the contacts to build and maintain those career competencies? So how do career conversations come into play? Well, basically, they could be just a space for students to make sense of what they are doing and to build on those career competencies. And how should they operate these career conversations? Firstly, we need to talk about them as being a one-to-one dialogue where the student, and in the case of this study, the teacher, are at the same level of authority. Second, we are needing to think of what they are really for. Are they just so that we inform students of what is out there and we gauge where they are? Students really should come out of a career conversation with more narrative building of their career path. So if they have a narrative, a career narrative, they probably are more able to make sense of what career competencies they need to develop. So in so doing, career conversations allow for the reflection of students in their career exploration, career experiencing, to make this career narrative. So the student should be the author of the narrative, but the teacher, the counselor, whoever they are having the conversation with, is facilitating that construction. So there are three key components to a good career conversation. And I'm talking about the good with in bold because this has been researched a lot in the Netherlands, but in a very particular context. It was in vocational education schools. So far, these have been identified as being key components. The content, so what are topics that are explored there? The dialogic structure, which is exactly what allows the student to have some authority in the conversation, but also to make sense of the world of work and of their own career positioning. And the type of interaction that there is between the teacher and the student in the case of this study. Now, this study is being done in Portugal because not only do I have a mission towards it, but because I do believe it is a fitting context to build on career guidance and to actually get a framework for practice. And why is it needed? Well, really, Portugal is the 4th OECD country with the highest ratio of youth to adult unemployment in 2020. There's a big dissonance between the skills and the knowledge that youngsters come out of school with and what the employment market really utilizes. Also, at the school level and the policy level, what we see is that there isn't a clear mandate of policy of what schools should do in terms of career guidance. And therefore, there isn't a real accountability of schools to do good career guidance. The provision, therefore, is very heterogeneous. And we also have another characteristic of career guidance in Portugal. It is that it is of the responsibility of psychologists and not of anyone else in the educational institutions. So in my study, I want to explore what are background determinants for students to acquire career competencies. And so I'm looking at these background determinants at two main levels. At the school level, I'm looking at the type of location the school is at. This could be industrial, agricultural, far or near a university. I'm looking at the socioeconomic demographics as well. At the student level, I'm looking at their situational characteristics. So have they already talked to a psychologist? In this case, is a psychologist that we're talking about because they are the ones delivering career guidance in Portugal. Have they talked to a psychologist or to the teacher in school? What year group and their parents' education? And then I'm looking at the student level as well at personal characteristics like age, gender, and one item, which is locus of control. And so what I'm doing is that after I collect these data, not just from the school, but also from surveys with students, I also utilize instruments that measure their own rating of their career competencies in terms of reflection, shaping, and networking, and their own rating of what they need in career conversations in different types of topics, so content, and different types of interaction. My theory is that these background determinants will be manifested somehow in how students rate themselves in terms of their conversation needs and also in terms of their career competencies. I believe that the way they feel in charge of their career path is correlated directly with what they need and indirectly with how they rate themselves in terms of career competencies. And in so doing, I also believe that needs to be some correlation between how they are doing in terms of career competencies and what they need from those career conversations. So basically, I'm constructing, or I have constructed surveys that don't only get those background determinants, but also allow students to rate themselves against statements that give us an analysis of their career competencies and their needs in terms of career conversation, but how they rate themselves as well against statements that give us an indication of their locus of control. So 3 instruments that are scale-based. And these instruments that I have used in surveys have been based on research that has been done, again, by the investigators in the Netherlands, and particularly by Mittendorf et al. And these have then been adapted to the context of my sample through factor analysis and reliability score checking. They have been piloted first with 45 students, and then interviews were used to check if the correlations made sense or not from these analyses. And after they were piloted, they were redesigned. So after redesigning the instruments, I then applied it again, but this time to 19 schools, collecting responses from 742 students. And at the moment, I am doing analysis from these 742 surveys, which will confirm or not the conclusions from the pilot studies. So that analysis comprises, for example, confirmatory factor analysis and alpha reliability scoring to check if these components do make sense or they need a bit of rejigging. I'm also looking at the theoretical correlations between not just background variables and these, but also between these scales using Pearson's and t-tests. And I'm also looking at further investigating these theoretical links with multivariate linear regressions and possibly structural equation modeling. However, this isn't enough to build a story as to what's going on in terms of career guidance in Portugal and how possible it would be to have the implementation of these career conversations. So I'm also collecting data from interviews, or I have actually collected data from interviews with 27 head teachers of these 90 schools, plus 8 more. And I've also performed group interviews with teachers and students from 9 of these 19 schools. So what are the conclusions that I got from the pilot study, which I believe to be quite relevant to inform you of in today's presentation? Firstly, is that students had a higher preference rating for career conversations with teachers compared to career conversations with the school psychologists. From interviews, the reasons given were that they feel higher comfort and a higher closeness of the relationship they have with the teacher than they do with the school psychologist. They've also shown, the surveys in the pilot study, that students who scored higher in career networking and career shaping, and what comes to competency scores, also scored higher for preferring to talk about their personal characteristics and their education and career planning in their career conversations. Students who scored higher in being able to reflect also scored higher in preferring a type of interaction where they, the student, would have a higher independent active role in that conversation. So they would be talking more. All students perceived career conversations with teachers as necessary. 74%, and of course this is as relevant as it can be in a sample as small as this, but 74% of these students have had career guidance with the school psychologist beforehand. The head teachers of the 2 schools where the pilot study was performed were not sure of what student career guidance really was going on in the school, nor were they able to offer me any ideas of how to track it. Now, talking of just the students who had career conversations with teachers before, these students, they had a higher content interaction needs scores. That means that they were more, probably it meant that they were more aware of what their needs were. They also showed that their career shaping and networking was higher. So again, maybe these career conversations really catalyzed a higher scoring in career competencies. And what was quite relevant to me was that they also showed a higher locus of control. So students who had career conversations with teachers before, they had more control, or rated themselves as having more control of their building of career competencies.
Now, you have 5 minutes left.
Okay, thank you very much. As I said, I'm in the process of analyzing the surveys that I've collected from 742 students. And from these, I've already noticed that the background determinants that really correlate significantly, and I'm talking statistically significantly, are the type of location at the school level, having had prior conversations with the psychologist and the teacher, year group, parents' education, and age. Gender is not correlating significantly with any of neither the needs nor the career competencies. Locus of control is correlating highly with any aspect of need and career competencies. I have some data in the correlation between how students are scoring in terms of shaping, networking, and reflection in their career competencies, as well as their needs for a career conversation. But I don't want to go so much into this because, again, I'm just getting to the conclusion as whether these are just correlations or if there is indeed any causation here. So I don't want to dwell too much on that. So all of these was to give you an indication as to where I'm trying to go conceptually with this research. And conceptually, I'm hoping to offer the realization that if students are rating different needs in terms of career conversations, then maybe we ought to start thinking of how to prioritize topics and the approaches to interaction in those career conversations. If students are showing different rates of career competencies, maybe we should also start thinking of how to plan different trajectories, individual ones, according to those career competencies, to build on them. So go from a baseline to better career competencies in any of these three types. And again, if we know how the student feels in control of their own career reflection and readiness, we probably are thinking of which extra level of support we need to give to that student prior to having a conversation or at the start of this career conversation program, so that they feel more in charge of their career competency building. So after all of this, really, I hope that we understand that actually we could be looking at career conversations as one of the methods of career guidance. And I say this really carefully, is one of the methods to build career competencies and therefore to allow for vocational progress. If we are able to measure career competencies in different points of an academic year, we can surely get this to be informing how we can differentiate career conversations in between to improve on them. And if we use student feedback on what they need from a career conversation, we probably are going to be better placed to prioritize content and interaction in career conversations. The implications this might have to schools in Portugal is that and others, I don't know yet, is that this could give concrete ways to assess vocational progress, that the career conversations can be indeed differentiated, and there are means to do so, but also that we can use the career conversations and what comes out of those career conversations to then plan other career guidance activities in the school. At the policy level, maybe it is easier then to make schools accountable for the type of vocational progress students are making, and to even give clear guidelines as to how to do it and what for, rather than just the what. So I hope to have made clear how we can go from talking about career conversations and career competencies to bring them together for vocational progress. And I'm now ready for your questions.